Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to IPFW Mastodon Career Calls. We have been offering these webinars all year long. We offer them once a month, every third Thursday of the month, and they're really targeted for IPFW students, alumni, community members to kind of help with your career goals. And today I'm really excited about our presenter, Abby Wilder from Lincoln Financial Group. She's worked there for over 6 years and has a wealth of experience as a recruiter. So I feel like you're really going to learn a little bit more about what recruiters look for on resumes and kind of how to make that resume stand out in a stack full of resumes on a recruiter's desk. She will be taking questions, so feel free to type those in the box and she'll kind of field those questions as she goes throughout the presentation. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Addie.
Thank you, Ashley. I just wanted to start off by saying thanks to IPFW for inviting me here today. And thank you, everyone who has logged on to listen to the webinar today. So before we get started, we did list a couple of polls out there. The one is, how much time does a recruiter take to review a resume? And as you've been joining, I see that you've been entering your answers. So I'll give you just a couple more seconds to enter your answer, and then we'll review the results. And the answers are 4 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and less than 10 seconds. So in a recent poll by the Ladders, many recruiters and individuals believe that they spend at least 4 minutes per resume when resumes come in. And the results of a recent study, again through the Ladders, revealed that they devote only a fraction of that time. And I think you would be surprised to believe that their results found that it was less than 10 seconds that recruiters spent on each resume. A lot of that goes back to, with today's technology, a lot of the systems that recruiters are using these days, the systems will pre-screen a resume prior to it getting into a recruiter's hands, and they'll pre-screen for the minimum qualifications that are outlined in the job description. So when it comes to your resume, it's really key to take the time to prepare it, have all of your information in there so that yours stands out above your competitors. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize my polls here so we can get started on the presentation. Give me 1 second. Okay, so before we even get into this slide, just to give a little bit of background on Lincoln Financial Group, we are a diversified financial services organization with a strong focus on 4 core business areas, which include life insurance, annuities, defined contribution, group protection. We were established in 1905. Lincoln Financial has helped customers face their futures with confidence by offering trusted financial solutions and advice. So we have about 9 major office locations. Fort Wayne is the biggest of the key city office locations with approximately 2,000 employees. Our corporate office is in Radnor, Pennsylvania. We also have offices in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Concord, New Hampshire, Hartford, Connecticut, Greensboro, North Carolina, Omaha, Nebraska, Atlanta, Georgia, and Rolling Meadows, Illinois. So let's get started on the presentation. So we're going to really talk about the basics of a resume today. We'll talk a little bit about the do's and don'ts. We'll even touch a bit on cover letters as well. So with a resume, your resume is really the key that unlocks the door to an interview. So anytime you're taking on new responsibilities or a new role, you really should update your resume. Your resume should be very fluid. the best time to update your resume is when you take on new responsibilities or a new job. The best way to do this is to print the job description from that position and really pull out those key elements of what you're going to be doing in that role and add that to your resume. If you're not the type of person that likes to pull out of your documents and update the actual resume, update an online profile. Many individuals, many candidates use LinkedIn these days, and it's very easy to add a new responsibility or a new job to a LinkedIn profile. Then that way when you go to apply for a new role, you already have that information that you can pull for and actually put in a resume format. So your resume should also be clear and to the point. It needs to be a reflection of your experience. You don't want to exaggerate your experience. Employers want you to be successful in a job. So if you've never had the experience that a company is looking for in a job, then don't stretch your skills and experience so much that you're exaggerating what you really can do. Keep your resume updated with correct dates. Oftentimes, a recruiter is looking for a certain number of years of experience. So you want to make sure that that is reflected on your resume so that we can go through and really see, do you have the breadth and depth of knowledge that we're looking for so that you can be successful in that role. Anytime that you apply for a job, you shouldn't just have one resume. Your resume really needs to be representative of that job that you're applying for. So, look at the job description, look back on your skills and experience, and relate those skills and experience specifically towards that job description. So we'll just jump right into the resume and cover letters do's. This is going to include, we touched a little bit on it already, about update contact information. If you've recently moved, or if your resume had your school address on it and now you're living somewhere else, whether you've moved or you've moved back home, you want to make sure your contact information is updated and correct. If you're a recent graduate, you want to include your GPA. If it's above 3.0, that's usually the threshold that you want to give that information. Make sure that your achievements replicate those in the job posting. So again, going back to tying in your skills and experience to that specific job posting. That's a great way to get your resume to the forefront of the rest of the individuals that are applying to the job. Proofread, proofread, proofread. I can't say this enough. Too many times we have individuals that don't take the time to proofread their resume, and unfortunately it gets into either a recruiter or a manager's hands, and I'll just say for Lincoln Financial Group, a lot of our communications between us and our clients, our communication needs to be spot on. Our letters need to be spot on. We don't have, we cannot make an error because it could cause us gain loss. So we want to ensure that, same with your proofreading. Your resume is a reflection of yourself. So include your education and graduation date or degree received. Oftentimes in a role, we are looking for someone who has a specific degree, so you want to list that out. And if you haven't graduated yet, it's easiest if you just put anticipated graduation date and include that. Otherwise, if you have graduated, you have received a degree, give me the date that you did graduate, or just simply list out the degree that you did receive. When it comes to objectives, if you're going to provide one, you need to update your objective with each role that you apply to. So if you're applying to Lincoln Financial Group, and just last week you applied for the hospital, please don't have in your objective that you're looking to pursue a career in the medical industry. updated accordingly. An objective for me, I don't need to have one because, again, your objective is going to come out. We're going to talk about what your career ambitions look like, or where you see yourself, or why you're interested in Lincoln Financial Group or this particular job when we have that interview. So I'm neither here nor there on an objective, but if you are going to provide one, just make sure that it's current with the job posting that you're applying for in the company. Include a professional or executive summary only if your experience warrants it. If you are a professional seeking out a job and you have a vast depth of experience, you want to be careful not to have 10 pages of a resume. So oftentimes you can pull out from your experience the most relevant information and add that to your resume. And then in your executive summary, you can further explain maybe what you didn't include in the resume or what your experience also includes. No acronyms. You want to make sure you're spelling out your school, the company name, a designation. We recruit for all types of backgrounds at Lincoln Financial Group. We're not just recruiting for a specific skill set. So, we may not be as familiar as you are in your own personal field of study as far as some of the designations go. So it's helpful if you spell those out and make it relevant to the recruiter. Let us know what it is that means. Anytime that you are looking for a job and you're actively putting a resume out in circulation, you're going to want to keep an eye on your email and your spam folders. A lot of the communication that we do is via the email and also phone communication as well, but the majority, I'm going to say, is through email. So you'll want to make sure that you're watching your email, and if it goes to spam, you're watching those spam folders. As far as cover letters go, spend just as much time on a cover letter as you're going to spend on your resume. Your resume, like I mentioned, is the key to unlock the door to that interview. A cover letter, if you're going to provide one much like the objective, don't just throw one out there just because you think you have to have one out there. But that's also a great time for you to sell yourself and to give the recruiter a little bit more information on yourself, even if you include an example in there to show how your experience is really very relevant to the experience of the role that you're applying for. And then lastly, if you're being referred by an employee of that company, say it. That's a good point to put in your cover letter. It's also, as a reference. You can put it on as a reference on your resume as well. So then we're going to talk a little bit about the don'ts of what not to do. So again, any time that you're actively pursuing a job and your resume is out in circulation, everything that is associated with you is a reflection of yourself. Your resume, your cover letter, your email address, your voicemail message. So be cognizant of that. And when you're applying for a role, don't have an unprofessional email address. When I talk to an individual, as I'm verifying with them their email address because I'm going to send them some documents or an assessment test or the link to fill out our employment application, I don't want to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to send it to your ilovesnookums@yahoo.com account. I want to be able to see that you're reflecting yourself very professionally. Same goes for a voicemail. If I'm going to call you to set up an interview, you don't want to have an unprofessional or inappropriate voicemail saved to your phone that you gave to us to contact you. Another don't, I kind of touched on this a little bit, you really don't want to go beyond one page on your resume unless your experience is relevant. So if you're a professional in the industry, and I'm looking for someone who has 10 years of experience as a project manager, 2 of those years as a program manager, someone who has their PMP, someone who has a degree. If I'm looking for that much experience, I need to see that reflected in your resume. So that's an appropriate time to list it all. Otherwise, keep it very relevant to the job that you're posting for. Make sure not to use lazy words like etc. or same as above. Your resume needs to be that one-stop shop. I need to get a clear snapshot. Remember, if I'm only looking at it, less than 10 seconds, I don't want you to say, oh, please reference such and such in my profile or in my cover letter. Give that to me in the resume so that it's very clear to me what your qualifications are. Don't include graphics or logos on a resume. It really doesn't do anything for you. As a recruiter, I'm interested in your experience. I need to know that you are going to be successful in this role, and I'm going to find that out by seeing your experience outlined on the resume itself. One other thing that you want to be mindful of is when you are applying for jobs, it's helpful if you have a clear understanding of what you want to do. It's not very helpful if you apply for a customer service position, an accounting assistant position, the director of marketing position, and so on and so forth. Because those are all so varied and require such a specific skill set and experience base. It's best that you clearly, take a look at the job descriptions, decide what you want to do, have a conversation with your career development center at your school. Talk through what you want to do, what you want to look for, where you see your career taking you. They can really help guide you in a direction. Always attend a mock interview. That's always helpful too. Okay, so what do recruiters and managers look for when we're looking at your resume? Absolute number one, we're looking for your relevant experience as it relates, as it pertains to the job. In most cases, we're looking for a mastery level in a certain field or an experience level. I'm also looking for gaps in employment. If your resume has the skill set that I need to pursue you further, when I am interviewing you, I'm going to ask you about those gaps in employment. I'm going to ask you to explain those. Be prepared to explain those. I'm also going to ask you, what was your leaving reason from XYZ company? I need to have an understanding of where you saw your career progression taking you. I'm also looking for job hopping and career hopping. And what I'm looking for there is your stability. Do you have a clear understanding of what you want to do? Are you pushing yourself in that direction? Are you taking on different assignments and challenging yourself to get to where you want to be? Are you stable within a career environment, or are you just hopping around just trying to check everything out? If I'm going to invest in you and hire you for a role, I need to ensure that you are going to be successful in this role, and this is something that you want to do and pursue. I may look for a lack of progression in job duties. In some of the roles that I recruit for, I'm really looking for that career trajectory. If I'm hiring for a director level role, I want to see that you came in, maybe you were at an entry level position, you promoted up to a team lead, you moved on to a management role, maybe you have some project work that you've worked on. I'm really looking for that progression in your duties and how you've advanced and learned throughout your career to make you successful again for this role. And then one other thing I'm going to share with you, what we look for on a resume we really look for your information on that you've shared with us on a resume to be also reflected in the employment application. For us, we use the employment application for our background screenings once an offer has been accepted. And if there's any inconsistency in the information that you've provided, we need to circle back and have that conversation with you. So again, going back to being truthful, don't over-exaggerate, and then making sure that your resume matches up to your employment application. So I have I have two resumes that I'm going to share with you as some examples. So the first one that you see, John Doe, this one is, I would say, probably more geared towards someone who is a recent graduate, where you don't have a lot of experience to share. Maybe all of your background, skill set, experience is in your education. So, my recommendation would be to lead with your education. So, for instance, in this particular example, we have the education listed first, where they went to school, what their degree was in. They graduated in 2011, and then honors programs that this individual was involved in, GPA, and then any other relevant information. So, for instance, if I'm looking at this position for a customer service representative role, I know I need someone with customer service background. Some of our customer service positions require you to be licensed through FINRA, and that is a big commitment to take that exam and to obtain that license, and then to be regulated by FINRA while you have that license. So I'm looking for someone who has experience in having a commitment in something. So if you're part of a program, an extracurricular activity, if you're on the honors list, the dean's list, if you're part of an organization within your school capacity that you can provide to me, that's great information to know. So as we continue to look through this, under activities and awards, this individual has shared with me that they are part of the Business Honors Student Association, the roles they played within, and then the American Marketing Association and what committees they were on. And then this particular individual had an internship, which I can't stress enough. If you're not able to provide any experience on your resume because you really focus on your studies during the school year, you're not working during that time, I really recommend any chance that you can do an internship. Is a great way to put what you've learned into practice and really to get your feet wet in the business world. And then also at the bottom of the resume, oftentimes we're looking for a specific mastery level in a system, whether it be Microsoft Excel or PowerPoint, or sometimes we are looking for individuals that are bilingual. So anything that is part of your skill set that you can provide to us that is relevant, that's what we want to see on a resume. The next resume that I have as an example, this would possibly be someone who is a professional. They've been out in the industry for a while. Maybe they're looking for a different job. So this maybe is more reflective of the alums that are on the line. So, as a recruiter, let's say for this particular position, I'm recruiting for a management level role. So I'm going to be looking for a certain number of years of experience of managing people. I'm going to be looking for a degree. I need to be able to see that career trajectory within that resume. So with this particular one, this individual led with their experience. Their education is still on there, but for this role, the experience is going to trump education. And I really need to see that if I'm hiring for a manager, I need to see that they've managed people. I need to see that they've maybe worked on budgets or projects or whatever the job description is requiring at that time. So this is just an example of a resume that a professional may use. And I will give a plug for the IPFW Career Services. They have a great manual. Their Career Services Career Guide has a ton of examples of resumes in the book. It's a great way for you to get an idea of what your resume should look like, or if you're really struggling with how you need to set it up. There's some great examples in there. And the Career Services individuals are more than happy to review your resume, critique it, provide some feedback to you. That definitely goes along with the proofreading of your resume. The next thing that we're going to talk about briefly is a cover letter. Again, I mentioned this earlier, kind of like an objective. A cover letter, I don't necessarily need one in all instances, but it's a great way to provide an example to help whoever's reviewing your resume connect your experience to that particular job that you're applying for. So this slide just really shows the basics of a cover letter. Most of these things you probably have already seen, but we'll cover it briefly. In the first paragraph, you're introducing yourself, you're letting the reader know why you're writing, you're being enthusiastic in the way that you present yourself and how enthusiastic you are for the job that you're applying for. You're going to state your background, sell yourself, what makes you the best candidate. I mentioned that this is a great opportunity to provide your referral source. So if you know an employee at the place that you're applying to, this would be a great time to mention that. In the second paragraph, you're really going to list your value to the company, describe how you will contribute to the company. You can give the reader a small glimpse into your background, which encourages them to want to learn more about you. And then it's also a good time to kind of share your knowledge of the company's goals and accomplishments and opportunities and how they relate to your goals and accomplishments. The third paragraph is simply the call to action. This is where you're going to tactfully ask for the interview. The next slide is just an example of a cover letter. It just talks about that first, second, and third paragraph, how you can introduce yourself, provide that glimpse of your background, provide an example, and then ask for the interview. I'll give you just a couple of seconds there to read through that. That's just an example. And that pretty much wraps up what I had as far as what to present to you today. A couple of takeaways. In today's market, there are numerous candidates applying for jobs, and the purpose of a resume is really to get your information to the forefront of the candidate pool. But again, without compromising your ability to be successful in the role. So again, we don't want you to exaggerate on the resume. Another thing, I mentioned it earlier, your resume is not the only information companies are gathering. Make sure you're representing yourself appropriately in your online profiles as well. We work very closely with LinkedIn. We will connect with candidates out on LinkedIn to build those relationships. It's a great way to learn a little bit more about the candidate, whether it's for a particular position that we're recruiting for right now, or something that might come down the pipeline. It's great to have that candidate pool already established in that relationship in place. So I'm going to open it up for questions at this time. If you do have a question, please go ahead and submit it, and I'll answer it as needed. Okay, so we have a couple of questions that have come in. Jessica, you had asked that if when you're creating your resume, if you're trying to fit it on one page, what's the minimum font size to use? It still has to be readable. With today's technology, we have in circulation a lot of iPhones, Blackberries, iPads. A lot of recruiters work remotely. They might be pulling up your resume on one of those devices. I would say, if I can read it without a magnifying glass, that's always a good thing. If you find that you're really minimizing your font so much that I would have to, as a recruiter, expand my page or zoom in to really read the resume, maybe you need to go back and proofread and pull out the most relevant information. And then that way you can get the font size up a little bit bigger so it's a little bit more comfortable to read. And then Zachary had asked, should my LinkedIn profile have the same content that my resume has on it? Absolutely. If I am out in LinkedIn and I'm looking through your profile, there's something on there that sparks my interest that I want to learn a little bit more about, I might say, hey, Zachary, let's connect. Why don't you send me a resume? Let's have a conversation. And then when I get that resume, if what's on your resume isn't reflective of what's in your LinkedIn profile, that might be confusing to me. Then when we have that conversation, I might say, well, what's changed? I might feel like you weren't being completely honest or truthful. So absolutely, your LinkedIn profile should have similar content or the same content as your resume. That's a good question. And then Randy asked, oh, I'll respond back to you, Randy, in just a moment. So there's another good question out here we have from Josiah. He asked, what are some key things that capture employers when first reviewing a resume? You're right, Josiah. We do sift through many resumes on a given basis. If we're, depending on the role that we're looking for, you're not one of 10 individuals applying for the role. You could be one of 50, and in many cases, one of 100. So again, it goes back to the minimum qualifications in the job descriptions. We take great care to create those job descriptions. Reflected in those job descriptions, we really list everything that you need to have in order to be successful in this role. So again, based on the job description, I'm going to review the job description before I look at any resumes. I'm going to have in my head what the key things are that my candidates need to have in order to be the most successful in this role. And I am going to look for those minimum qualifications. So if in my job description I say you have to have a 4-year degree in finance, then you got to have a 4-year degree in finance. If in my job description I say you have to have your PMP, you're going to have to come to the table with a PMP. So I'm going to look for those items first, for those minimum qualifications first, before I dig a little bit deeper and really review that resume. That's a great question. And then Zachary asks, can you use a template when creating a resume? As long as your template doesn't confuse or mess up the message that you're trying to portray. I've seen individuals use templates where they don't have information to plug into some of the fields, and so it's left blank, but the header is still there. And to me, that's wasted space. That's space on your resume that you could have really utilized to sell yourself. So you can use a template, play around with it, enter your information. If it's not working for you, then you might just have to go the old-fashioned way and open up a blank document and plug your information in. Again, you wanna get the most relevant information on your resume, so again that you do come to the forefront of the candidate pool. So I'm neither here nor there on a template, but make sure it's working in your best interest. That's for sure. That's a good question. So Jessica asked, because of the use of technology, is it better to email your resume or mail it in if both options are offered? So I'll speak for Lincoln. We have an online applicant tracking system at our career site. In order to be considered a candidate for us, you do have to apply online. You can send me your resume, but again, if you're not tracked through our system, I really can't consider you as a candidate. And considering you are one of 50 or one of 100 in some instances in a particular job, and a recruiter might have 30 to 40 jobs on their workbench that they're filling at any given time, you can kind of do the math there. We are inundated with a lot of resumes. So if you've already sent it to me in one format, which for Lincoln that would have to be online, that's your best option. If you're not applying for Lincoln Financial Group, if you're applying to a different company, it's a great idea to find out what their expectations are of how you should apply. Great place to do that is on their website. They'll tell you whether they want you to apply online or to submit a resume to a particular email address or to mail it in. They'll let you know, they'll indicate to you how they want to receive your information. Good question. So Bill had a question. We talked a little bit about this as far as from the poll that you took early on of how long a recruiter takes to look at a particular resume. So Bill, what you're referring to is some of the computer programs that are in existence today that sift through resumes and pull out those keywords for those minimum expectations. That many companies will use to help pre-screen those resumes. Again, going back to the fact that there are numerous candidates in the marketplace right now, and companies really have the luxury of picking out the best of the best. If they're looking for a specific skill set, again, you want to identify, if you have that skill set or experience, you do want to identify that on your resume. So absolutely have those keywords on your resume so that if a company is using that type of technology, it pulls that information from your resume and moves you on to the next stage in the process. So Randy had a question about what about posting different resumes online like Career Builder. So Randy, I'm not sure if what you're asking is, should you have a different resume for each job that you post to, or if you mean that in your candidate profile you have multiple resumes attached. I would definitely suggest that for every job that you apply to, you have a resume that's specific to that job. You want to look at the job description. You want to reflect back on your own experience, and you want to tie the two together. So you want to be able to show that recruiter that I have relatable experience. My job title at this company might be a little bit different than the job title at your company, but my experience is the same. And part of our diversity and inclusion is to include individuals that have that relatable experience. So I'll answer your question as how I'm assuming you're asking is, yes, you should have a different resume for each job that you are applying for, because you want that resume tailored to that specific job. Zachary poses a great question, wanting my thoughts on video resumes. This is a huge trend right now that's being utilized by companies in every industry. Again, with modern technology, there's a lot of new and exciting ways that we can get introduced to a candidate. There are options where a candidate can go through the interview process by recording visually their interview and their interview answers. There's other technology where it records, it'll ask you a series of questions, it'll record your voice, and then that information is sifted over to the recruiter. It's very innovative technology. There are a lot of companies that are using it. I know we are looking into using that type of technology. We look forward to seeing where we're going to end up with that. It's interesting. It's really the wave of the future. My thoughts are that more and more companies are probably going to go that route. So, you know, before your professors or your career counselors might have told you anytime you go to an interview, prepare by being in front of a mirror and seeing what you look like when you talk. Definitely I'm going to recommend that going forward, as well as possibly even recording yourself online and then watching your video. I know I'm going to do that today after today's webinar. I'm going to make sure that I review my webinar to see how I looked. That's a great question. It's a really innovative thing that's happening in the recruiting industry. So look for more to come, I think. So I think I've gone through the questions. Some individuals have submitted some questions that that I've asked to be responded to personally. I'll go ahead and do that here towards the end. But if there isn't any more questions that come through, I do want to thank you for your time this afternoon. I've really enjoyed presenting the webinar. I want to again thank IPFW for inviting me in. I would challenge all of you to go out and update your resume, go to the career services here at IPFW and have them review the resume for you. And I will put up the next slide, which is our career site at Lincoln Financial Group. Once you've updated your resume, once you've had someone take a look at it, once you've proofread it several times, I would encourage you to take a look at our jobs on our career website, which is here on the slide. And you can filter by a particular job or you can filter by location. And I want to thank you everyone for joining us today. And I think we're all up. Good.